Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 32, Telecommunications and Postal Services Appropriation Bill.
I now invite the Honorable the Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services to introduce his budget.
Honorable House Chairperson, colleagues, ministers, honorable members, invited guests, fellow South Africans. It gives me a great honor during this centenary year of Comrade O.R. Tambo to present Budget Vote 32 of the Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services worth 1.6 billion. We salute this revolutionary who comes from the generation of leaders that rose above their oppressors, as illustrated by his 1989 message to Soweto rally to welcome leaders. I quote, "This is a joyful day for all of us. It is a day of celebration for all the people of our country. Those who have chosen to turn their backs on our festivity are a small minority who continues to cling to the anti-human concept and practices of racial arrogance, white minority domination, and super-exploitation of the masses of our people. Yet they are part of our heritage. They are part of that history and continuing reality of our country, which has meant the imprisonment of the best representative of our people for a quarter century or more, murder of thousands, and millions who have suffered from the daily violence inherent in the apartheid system." Close quote. Our key priorities for this year include measures to expand ICT access through broadband rollout, increase ICT skills for internet usage, utilization, reduce the costs for data and devices, the corporatization of the Post Bank, and the implementation of the ICT white paper to foster radical socio-economic transformation in our sector. We are pursuing these priorities at the backdrop of the fourth industrial revolution, which is fundamentally changing the way we live, conduct business, and how we interact with governments. It offers potential great benefits to those who participate in it, but more divide to the excluded. The ANC government is embracing this revolution as a platform to propel us to be globally competitive. It calls upon us to prepare our current and future workforce through skilling and reskilling. Members, some of the skills you need to survive this revolution include cognitive skills such as mathematical reasoning and visualization, comprehension and ICT literacy, manual dexterity and precision, critical thinking and listening, emotional intelligence and service orientation, judgment and systems analysis, complex problem solving, resource and time management, and of course, technical skills such as equipment, maintenance, operation, and repairs. The key to these new skills is the learning of mathematics, science, and coding for every school-going child. Honorable Chairperson, in 2016, despite tough economic environment, the total investment towards ICT increased by 18.8% to 28 billion rands. However, the focus of the industry was on general network improvement as well as fiber deployment in major city urban areas. This helped improve our WEF network readiness index from 75th to 65th position in 2016. This index measures the country's propensity to exploit the opportunities offered by the ICT and their impact on global competitiveness. The ITU Development Index also improved slightly, but constrained by usage and skills. The recent ICASA report showed 3G coverage reaching 99% and 4G rising to 75% of the population. However, not all those who are covered have access or are using the internet. as only 53.4% of South African households have access to the internet. The 10 districts with the least access to the internet are Alfred Nzo, Amatole, uKhahlamba, Sekhukhune, OR Tambo, Umzinyathi, Sisonke, Dr. Ruth Mampati, Chris Hani, Phisi Kaseme, and Vembe district municipalities. The reasons for not having internet at home or mobile internet includes 38% lack skills or confidence, 35% lacks relevant content or the need to use internet, and 20% due to high cost. However, when you go to metropolitan areas, the high cost of data and equipment are the main concern. Fellow South Africans, we need to connect 22 million people if we are to meet our South African Connect and NDP target of universal access to internet by end of 2020. The ANC government maintained this enormous target because we know very well that the majority of those of the unconnected are those marginalized by the apartheid system, including women, as well as people living in rural areas and underserved municipalities. This task requires our collective effort. We are pleased that at the recent World Economic Forum meeting in Durban, we adopted and announced Internet for All South Africa Partnership Initiative. We forged partnership with WEF, business, civil society, and donor agencies to advance priority areas. In June, there will be a national launch of the Internet for All to enable more stakeholders to commit on their respective actions. The initiative will rest on 4 pillars. First, infrastructure expansion, ICT skills development, affordability, and relevant content development, including making internet content available in our own languages. Let me take this opportunity to thank Ms. Elsie Kanza from WEF. I think she's sitting somewhere there. WEF and all global and national partners who have joined us today and are seated in these galleries. If they can just stand so they can see these partners from WEF and all other partners who signed. Thank you. The government will provide secretarial support and coordination. Business is already committed to provide project management, and WEF supervise and guide for success. The Internet for All Global Steering Committee organizations have already committed to be core champions of this project. They include Telkom, MTN, Microsoft, Qualcomm, Intel Corporation, Boston Consulting Group, Digital Opportunity Trust, Cisco, Development Bank of Southern Africa, Liquid Telecom, African Development Bank, United Kingdom DFID, and World Bank. In our preparatory meeting in Cape Town yesterday, more partners committed, including Vodacom, Cell C, Google, Ericsson, Accenture, Altron, IDC, our own SOEs, SMMEs, Research ICT Africa, Ndlovukazi Online Media, as well as WEF Global Shapers. The meeting was also blessed, Honorable Chair, by the President of Inkosi Matikane II, Digo of Amabhaca, Tolelengwe. Some of the commitments are already training millions, not just thousands, millions of South Africans on digital skills, research assistance, infrastructure deployment and financing, mobilization of the participation of our youth. Honorable members, last year we committed to commence implementation of the first phase of South Africa Connect in 8 pilot districts after following the open tender process by CETA. Unfortunately, there was no successful bidder among those who participated, resulting in its cancellation in November 2016. We have since decided to utilize our own entities such as CETA, Broadband Infraco, and Centec in line with their mandates to implement this critical project. In the current financial year, 416 million rand had been set aside to connect 2,700 sites. House Chairperson, in the last financial year, BBI expanded its network to more than 14,900 kilometers of fiber. It optimized 41 points of presence to enable third parties to access its network. In this financial year, BBI will continue to aggregate state network services and lead in the connection of pilot districts. In advancing inclusive growth, BBI continues to connect Black-owned regional internet service providers such as Galela, Umzinyati, and Brightwave Technologies. Centec is one of our best managed entities with unqualified audits. However, its going concern is currently being threatened by the broadcasters that are experiencing funding challenges and defaulting on payment. We appeal on these broadcasters to make efforts to resolve this debt. Centec received a budget of 193 million for DTT dual elimination until next year, where we hope digital migration will be completed. CETA provides core private network of government. In addition, it has partnered with private sector and Western Cape government to roll out 1,900 sites in just 2 years. It is exploring a similar relationship with the Limpopo government. In this financial year, CETA will play a leading role in digitizing and connecting sites in pilot districts. Compatriots, the corporatization and full licensing of the Post Bank is on track as part of government effort to ensure financial inclusion in the underserved market. Some of the significant milestones towards compliance target by 3rd of July this year are: in July last year, SAPO obtained approval to establish a bank from the regulator. 2, in March this year, the first Post Bank board was appointed after rigorous fit and proper assessment by the Reserve Bank. In April this year, South African Post Office Bank SOC Limited Company was registered and incorporated with the Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission. Most of the IT capabilities have already been implemented. Key appointments in internal audit, regulatory, and risk management position have been made. Now our efforts are concentrated in resolving the structure of the bank controlling company, as well as the resolution of legislative conflicts around the definition of a public company by aligning the Banks Act to the Companies Act. It is important to note that despite the challenges in SAPO, the Post Bank division is well cushioned, well managed, and profitable with its capital adequacy requirement in excess of 1.4 billion in the last financial year. In April last year, SAPO was authorized to increase its long-term borrowing to 3.7 billion in the domestic market. This enabled SAPO to settle past debts, which was crippling its operation. The rest is being spent on revenue generation measures of the strategic turnaround of SAPO. Honorable members, SAPO is ready to assist SASSA to take over the payment of the social grant as directed. Honorable members, in September last year, the ANC government approved the National Integrated ICT White Paper to drive NDP objective of creating inclusive information society and knowledge economy. Since then, we've been engaging the ICT industry stakeholders on how best we implement this policy. There is general agreement with the trust of the policy and the need to implement it without delay. Most of our discussion with stakeholders focus on how best we implement the wireless open access network called WAN and the allocation of and the return of the high demand spectrum. I'm pleased to announce that after the last consultation on Friday last week, we agreed on the following approach. One, there may be no agency to return the current high demand spectrum from the licensees until the end of the current license period to ensure investor certainty. Two, in return, the licensees committed to buy at least 30% of the existing capacity of WAN when it's formed to ensure its viability. Three, given the current levels of investment on the 4G network, the minister committed to conduct an urgent high-level study to determine if WAN will utilize all high-demand spectrum for the 4G network. If there will be remaining spectrum, it will be licensed to operators with, of course, rural obligation. In such case, the licensee is further committed to buy at least 50% of WAN capacity. It is important to realize that without WAN, new entrants, particularly black entrepreneurs and SMMEs, will find it impossible to enter this industry. In the next few months, we intend to finalize the implementation plan. Fellow South Africans, our work is made easy and enhanced by our councils and forums we've created. The Deputy Minister will expand on these, as well as eSkills Institute, National Cybersecurity Hub, and USASA. Honorable members, we agree with the call from South Africans that the data prices must fall. According to 2017 State SA report, the ICT contributes 3% of the GDP and constitutes 4.6% of household expenditure. In 2016, I issued a policy direction to ICASA to prioritize the commencement and conclusion of an inquiry and the prescription of regulation to ensure effective competition in the broadband market. We are still waiting concrete intervention from ICASA. The initial response from the regulator suggests that they will finalize this work in the next 2 years. Speed of intervention is critical in a rapidly evolving sector like the ICT. The ICASA State of ICT report seems to suggest lack of competition, particularly by dominant players. The reports indicate data traffic increased by 55%, data revenue increased from 30 billion to 38 billion, but the employment decreased by 4,000 people who lost their jobs. Yet, prices remain sticky at the same high levels. In our view, Honorable Chair, this may need the attention of the Competition Commission, but however, we appeal to our operators to start competing on services to ensure that cost of data and calls falls to affordable levels or below 2% of average household income. House Chairperson, our international work is advancing our national development goal in the ITU, UPU, UN, AU, and the Global Internet Governance Forum. Earlier this month, South Africa joined Smart Africa Alliance. This is an initiative that aims to transform Africa into a single digital market through harmonizing policy, legal, regulatory, and investor codes in the continent, generating more demand and establishing more favorable market conditions. Ultimately, the intention is to enhance African economy, attract large-scale investment, build new industry, and create jobs. South Africa will champion the skills development program of this initiative and localization to stimulate demand for locally produced electronics for African market. In conclusion, with our modest budget, through our strategic partnership, we are on track to meet our ambitious target of ensuring that all South Africans have access to and are utilizing internet for their development. We are taking bold and practical steps to move towards inclusive inclusive growth in the ICT sector, and prepare our nation to reap the benefit of the fourth industrial revolution while minimizing digital divide and unemployment. Let me thank the ICT industry for continuing to invest in the South African economy. I am indebted to all those who are optimistic about our country and are partnering with us to connect 22 million South Africans in the next 2.5 years. I'm grateful to all the workers who makes this industry to tick. I thank the boards of our state-owned entities and their managers for always striving to meet their developmental mandates. Of course, I thank my new Director General, Mr. Robert Nkuna, and Team DTPS for improving performance and governance. I thank the chairpersons of the parliamentary committee and members of the committee who keeps us on our toes. I thank my family and friends for their unflinching support. And lastly, Chairperson, let me thank our President, Deputy President, our cabinet colleagues, and the African National Congress for guidance and ensuring that our country moves forward for the benefit of all. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next speaker is Honorable Totsetsi.
I'm coming. Honorable Chairperson, the Minister and Deputy Minister of Telecommunications, and your team, honorable members of Parliament, and our guests. Molasetulo ke tla qala ka binamisa hlooho ka maikutlo a titibetseng ka dillo le ditsikitlano tsa meno tsa lethathama la dipolao tse sehloho tsa barwetsana, bana le basadi ka hara naha. Le ha ba ne le mahlasipa le bona palo ya basadi e ka hodimo haholo. Re phephi hara lahlelo le lebang empa le setjhaba ka kakaretso se lahlehetswe. Ke rata ho nka monyetla ona ho thoholetsa matona a tshireletso le setjhaba, Mohlomphehi Mbalula le Mohlomphehi Mkhongi. Re le tshware ka natla le tiise ho feta mona le lwantshe kgodumodumo pele qeta setjhaba. Re lebohe haholo le baithaopi ba lwanelang toka le kgotso ho sireletsa malapa le mahlasipa. Chairperson, the content of my speech will align to the development plan, the NGP 2017 State of the Nation Address, the NC Makgotla, IC Technologies, National Growth Plan, that's the NGP, and the government's 5 priorities, that is health, education, employment, rural development, and fighting corruption and crime. The National Development Plan aims to eliminate poverty and reduce inequality by 2030. South Africa can realize these goals by drawing on the energies of its people, growing an inclusive economy, building capabilities, enhancing the capacity of the state, and promoting good leadership and partnership throughout society. The committee raised a number of issues during the deliberation of the annual performance plan of the department and the entities. The committee noted the challenges faced by the department in achieving their targets. The situation was as a result of lack of capacity. There is progress as some of the important positions are now filled. The department has committed itself to improve and reduce partially achieved targets to complete achievement of the targets. It is for the same reasons that the committee has highlighted the importance of finalizing the transformation of NEMISA to ICAMVA, National E-Skills Institute, that's INESI. INESI will be an integration of 3 ICT skills development related components at DTPS, namely NEMISA, the E-Skills Institute, and the Institute for Space and Software Applications. It is important to note that the e-skills capacity building is currently enabled at all levels to all people of South Africa, including e-literacy or digital literacy, ICT practitioner skills, user digital skills, e-leadership or digital leadership skills. On transformation and capacity, South Africa still faces many challenges to empower the rural communities. The Constitution of South Africa, Act number 108 of 1996, guarantees to improve the lives of all citizens and free the potential of each person. Most of the rural women in South Africa still lack socioeconomic opportunities and come from female-headed households. They were deprived of access to land, partly due to cultural norms, and still live in poverty. In his 2017 SONA, President Jacob Zuma said, government will also continue to pursue policies that seek to broaden the participation of Black people in SMMEs, including those owned by women, people with disabilities, and the youth in the ICT sector. There is perception that women are not interested in ICT, hence the minimal number of women in the ICT business, and by implication, rural communities do not have satisfactory access to ICT because they are not interested. It is upon us, public representatives, to ensure all communities, rural and urban, have access to these valuable developments. Not only access, but affordability is equally crucial. We are appealing to mobile operators to come to the party and be considerate of the cost to communicate. We are also considerate of the fact that they are not charity organizations, but business organizations. We have no intention to tamper with the profits, but let us be human and make business ethics user-friendly. Accessibility also necessitates skills to operate the gadgets. We cannot forget how apartheid systematically ensured the majority of Black people are not educated, as this would have tempered with their massive appetite for cheap labor. It is therefore crucial that you encourage them to attend adult basic education training, what you normally call ABET, so that they are able to operate the IT systems. These are part of the benefits which came with democracy. The transformation process is a bit slow because there are people who are resisting, albeit subtle. However, not all is lost. There is still hope. It is important to note that during the tabling of the APPs, the department indicated that it had developed an ICT SMME strategy to create a substantial number of international, competitive, dynamic, innovative, technologically driven, sustainable ICT SMMEs that significantly contribute to the country's developmental priorities. Over the infrastructure continues to limit involvement of small players in the segment of the ICT. Moreover, high capital requirements for deploying infrastructure continues to limit involvement of small players in this segment of the ICT value chain. The other biggest challenge is compliance on the transformation agenda by big business. And more often than not, they choose to pay the fine due to non-compliance. This is nothing else but arrogance and the quest to ensure the haves are always above the have-nots, thus maintaining the status quo. It is in the spirit of good governance, Chairperson, that we must highlight the unhappiness of the committee during the oversight visit to Mpumalanga in March 2017. Just to mention a few findings over the observation, I think my other colleague will elaborate in more details, that most of the projects that USASA reported to have been implemented were not implemented. The service provider failed dismally in providing connection to the sites, despite being paid over 20 million rands. The committee could not establish any existence of any service level agreements between the service provider, the MENG and USASA. As I've said, my colleague will come after me, will elaborate on more details. In conclusion, Chairperson, the committee will make a follow-up with the department to ensure consequence management is applied. All officials in the department have the required qualifications and skills to ensure optimum competency and qualitative service delivery to the people. The Auditor General's opinion and recommendations must be adhered to. Corrupt officials must not be allowed to resign until their cases are completed. People have the tendency to resign whenever consequence management is to be effected. We think moving forward, this will stop. We thank you, Chairperson, and support the budget.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Shin.
Honourable colleagues, about a year ago, ICASA took fright at the draft National Integrated ICT White Paper policy white paper, and within months gazetted its invitation to network operators to participate in an auction for the much sought after high demand spectrum. It is an impolite way to say what happened next, but let's just say that the fan is still spinning. It's been a year of antagonism between the Minister and the ICT sector. Legal battles were launched. There were threats of expropriation of the mobile network business and mutterings about taking this ANC government to the Constitutional Court to protect the due process of lawmaking and the preservation of private sector financial investments. Some of the spin-offs of the churning have had positive impacts. Minister Cwele must be congratulated for taking seriously the outrage over the proposed structure and spectrum grab of the proposed wholesale national wireless open access network, or WOAN, to come up with a compromise that has broad agreement from the stakeholders. The minister's tactic of agreeing to the flexibility and implementation of the policy's stand on spectrum allocation is something we will keenly watch through the regulatory processes to ensure that the principles of market competition and investment protection are embedded in the wholesale wireless broadband market, and that it is not held hostage to enriching ANC cronies. All of this angst could have been avoided if the minister and his advisors had not tried to ambush the communications sector with the details of the WOAN idea without subjecting it to lawful public participation. It was this underhand contravention of proper processes to blindside the sector that was one of the factors that prompted ICASA to exercise its mandate to operate in the best interests of market competition and launch its spectrum auction. The auction action gave loud advance warning that some drastic action was pending, and this was confirmed when the policy was gazetted last October. It contained a suspiciously spawned network idea that smelled of connected cronies, already super rich from the initial liberalization of the telecom sector, making a grab for other people's businesses in the guise of radically transforming the ICT sector. What ICASA saw a long year ago was a policy idea that would introduce a wholesale network monopoly that would inhibit investment in the sector and keep costs high through lack of competition. The concessions the minister has facilitated with the core of the stakeholders involves allowing the mobile network operators to retain the spectrum they currently use to service their customer bases, as well as access to sufficient high-demand spectrum. This will enable them to run in parallel to the WOAN, at the same time as being the WOAN's significant customers. They'll also commit to increase their empowerment credentials. There's a legal and operational minefield to traverse here. What is sufficient spectrum for the operators and the WOAN? Also, the operators are being asked to commit now to using 50% of a network that, even with optimum efficiency, will take at least 6 years to build. Who knows what the market and the economy will look like in 2022? I ask the minister to publish on the department's website the signed agreement with the stakeholders, as well as timely updates and outputs of the research being undertaken into what is sufficient spectrum, and the implementation plan and timelines for the WOAN. ICASA must closely watch the establishment and operations of it to ensure it operates competitively, encourages innovation in delivery mechanism, complies with the best technical standards, and facilitates smaller operators, particularly in the rural areas. This past wasted year was just another time waster in the ANC's tally of ill-advised decisions and policies that have been more geared towards enriching cronies than working in the best interests of the nation. Another spectacular ANC government failure is the migration to digital broadcasting, which should have happened last June. This migration to free up spectrum for the wireless broadband services has had many missteps and ANC stupidity during the past 15 years. It is now bogged down in the courts thanks to a suspect policy amendment made by Minister Mutambi. The new Minister of Communications indicates that a reversal of this policy is pending. We look forward to that happening. But this is only the first step in breaking a logjam. There is a seemingly corrupt procurement process for the production of the set-top boxes. The entire process needs to be revised. And all these delays just add further to the delay in broadband rollout and access to internet. Another failure of this ANC government in delivering affordable internet throughout the country is South Africa Connect. The tender to confirm the ANC's choice of a lead agency to manage this ambitious project failed last year. Had the minister taken the advice of the National Broadband Advisory Council, established in terms of SA Connect, rather than snubbing it into oblivion, he would have avoided the lead agency mistake. He plans to rectify this. I hope so. It's 2.5 years late. Phase 1, announced in SONA 2015, and again this year, would be well on its way if the minister had taken the Broadband Advisory Council seriously and given them the respect they deserved. The spin-offs from the FAN have also hit the have also hit the mobile network operators in their conscience. Public outcry about mobile data costs during the Portfolio Committee's two-day hearing have prompted the major operators to initiate some steps of their own to bring down costs. The committee has recommended that ICASA research the financial implication of the operators splitting their businesses into wholesale and retail operations in the interest of pricing transparency and user choice. Public pressure has worked on the minister over his WOAN idea, and it is working with the network operators on pricing and their empowerment strategies. Citizens' voices are being heard and acted upon, and this is cause for celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Gaula.
The constitutional mandate of the Department of the Telecommunication and Postal Services to create a vibrant ICT sector that ensure that all South Africans have access to robust, reliable, and affordable and secure ICT services in order to advance socio-economic development goals and support the Africa agenda to contribute to building a better world. The role that the internet and ICT sector play in today's modern economy cannot be overlooked. It is in many ways the future of the world, and the emergence of ICT economy has been labeled by many as industrial revolution. The department needs to help the country to develop the necessary skills, capacity, and technology so that South Africans, particularly the black majority, are able to benefit and drive the fourth industrial revolution. The ICT sector and access to in South Africa is unequally distributed. The poor rural areas where internet is most needed is not available. Prospective students from the rural areas are traveling thousands of kilometers to universities in cities just to do the application, bearing unnecessary cost. If there was affordable access to the internet in the rural areas, these unnecessary costs could have been avoided. In South Africa, there are rural areas with no network coverage after 23 years. This is the evidence of the slow pace of transformation in our society and a bad reflection to the Department of Telecommunication and Postal Services to fulfill its mandate. Whilst internet and data accessing is a luxury to many rural dwellers, it remains a simple necessity to the white minority having much better access to the internet than the black majority. If this does not change, the economy of the future will be just as unequal and divided as the economy of the past. In a country with such high levels of unemployment and poverty, it is criminal that the government has done so little to increase broadband service in the township of South Africa. Access to the internet and the internet economy are spaces where people can be creative with how they make money, be innovative, find new jobs, and start small businesses. The innovation capacity amongst the rural dwellers has been hamstrung. The budget vote is quiet on rebuilding the capacity of the postal services in South Africa. Due to many workers in the post office working as contract workers, casual and some contracted through labor brokers, the post office communication services are poor because of the lack of job security. Many of these workers are discouraged because of the lack of political leadership. The post office on more than one occasion in the past 3 consecutive years has been engulfed by long strikes, workers demanding permanent employment and better salaries. These are simple demands in which all workers are entitled. However, due to lack of political will and leadership, deficiency in South Africa had to endure a stalemate on postal services which could have been avoided. The services in post office, they had to stand still. In South Africa, there are post offices that do not have photocopy and printing services. In Platinbank Bay and also in Motherwell in the Eastern Cape, there is no printing and photocopy services. The building of the capacity of Postbank to become a fully fledged state-owned bank is good news and is of immediate interest now. This is the opportune time to build the state-owned bank to seize opportunities in the financial sector industry. The crisis experienced in the Department of South African Social Service Agent, the exploitation of SASSA grants by the greedy cash master services from Australia could have been avoided, and the public purse by now could have been safe. The question we must ask, do we have the leadership in the ministry? Time will tell. In the building of the capacity of the Post Bank into a state-owned bank, will warrant the state to suspend all transactions related with the main banks of South Africa, and all employees' state salaries will be under the Post Bank as the necessity. The EFF believes that a move will give content to the call for the radical economic transformation. This is superior logic, and no amount of dwarfness, idiocrat, and dandaism could pass the test against it. This move will present and prove the case of the EFF for the nationalization of the commanding sectors of our economy. As part of rolling out ICT and internet services, the department should facilitate the establishment of ICT cooperatives for young people to ensure accessibility.
Honourable Member, your time
and
is now
vibrancy.
expired.
The EFF rejects the bill. Thank you very much.
Order. Before the next speaker take to the podium, I just want to remind members in the public gallery, members of the public, that you are not permitted to make use of photographic equipment. It is distracting the speakers as well as the chairperson in observing the proceedings in the House. The Honourable Nkomo, you can continue.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members and guests. I read this debate or this information on behalf of my colleague, the Honorable Liesel van der Merwe. Chairperson, the IFP remains gravely concerned that South Africa, which continues to experience low economic growth, is not placing enough focus on expanding broadbanding both nationally and especially in our rural areas. There are so many examples both in Africa and worldwide, looking at countries like Nigeria, Thailand, Vietnam, and the BRICS countries, which point to the fact that where government provides heavy impetus into creating greater access to broadbanding, the economy does grow. South Africa Connect, which is the national broadband policy adopted by Cabinet in 2013, is government's intent vehicle to be utilized to meet the technology goals of the National Development Plan by 2013. Phase 1 of South Africa Connect has been an ABC failure thus far, and the department must get its house in order as regards to the enactment priority legislation in this regard, creating more state-owned enterprises where the current ones are nothing but failures and honeypots for the few well-placed cadres, and state capture apparatus does not bode well for the success of the project, and alternatively, vehicles should be pursued. Chairperson, we are however pleased that the South African Post Offices is showing stability under the leadership of the new Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Mark Barnes. We hope to see that this actually continues to be successful, and it should also show the leadership which Mr. Barnes has shown, especially when it comes to being innovative and using a lot of his greater human endeavors. We also continue as the IFP to support for the full takeover of the grant payment system by SAPO. The government cannot continue to talk about radical economic transformation and the transformation and then provide a multi-billion rand contract to pay out to CPS. These contracts should have been awarded to SAPO. Not only do they have the capacity, but they managed, or the management of this task will also provide a much needed lifeline for the institution in respect of data, and after much fanfare at Parliament, and following a hearing into the cost and communication and the data must fall campaign, one can only conclude that data still remains far too expensive and the cost to communication far too high for the ordinary South African. In fact, we have the highest data costs in the world, which once again hampers opportunities for young people, and hinders economic growth. These barriers must be removed by government. And these type of areas are quite serious in order for us to move from this radical economic transformation just being a buzzword. In conclusion, there is a great deal resting on the shoulders of the department in respect of the future economic growth. We ask the Honorable Minister and the DG to ensure that this department becomes a part of the solution and not a hindrance.
Honourable
to
Member, your
movement.
time is
The
now expired.
IFP supports this vote. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Deputy Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services.
Thank you. Honorable Chairperson, Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services, Dr. Gwele, Chairperson and honorable members of the Portfolio Committee and other committees, the Director General, Chairpersons, board members, and CEOs of our state-owned entities, senior government officials, captains of the industry, members of the media present this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, Deputy Minister Magwanishe Molweni, Abusheni, Tobela, Dimasiari, Lochani, good afternoon, Goeiemiddag, Madam Sheen. It is an honor for me to stand before you this afternoon to deliver my maiden budget vote speech as the Deputy Minister since my reappointment in this portfolio. This is a portfolio that is very close to my heart, especially in realizing the role that information and communication technologies play in advancing socio-economic development. I therefore look forward to this second coming. With the guidance and continued support from you all, I have no doubt that we will drive the ICT agenda in the country and change the lives of our people to whom we owe this honor. This budget votes coincide with 100 years since our struggle hero, Comrade Owar Tambo, was born. This is the man who is credited not only for keeping the ANC together during torrid times in exile, but he co-founded the ANC Youth League in 1944, thus ensuring that the movement grows and regenerates itself. By establishing the ANC Youth League, Comrade OR understood that the future of any organization, movement, and country lies in its ability to invest in the youth. In this respect, this financial year will see the department placing more focus on programs which speak to youth development and women empowerment. House Chairperson, South Africa's ICT industry, like anywhere else, is going through rapid changes with the global challenges of the fourth industrial revolution inevitably beckoning. Our response in this regard has to be cognizant of us as a developing country with the prevailing legacies of the preceding revolutions 1, 2, and 3. As Owar Tambo addressed the extended meeting of the National Executive of the ANC on the 1st of April 1975, he posed the 3 points to the meeting. That, and I quote, "We have to identify our position. Do we not belong to the past? Are we properly matching with the times?" And I close quote. In responding to these points today, we need to be mindful that whatever they are, the benefits of the fourth industrial revolution will never be meaningful to us if they do not help us to overcome the digital divide, empower our youth and women, create jobs, and bolster SMMEs. These are the challenges and aspirations we seek to address as mapped out in the NDP and the 9-point plan. We shall not rest until they are achieved. It is unfortunate that we have to deliver on them in a negative economic environment characterized by declining public funds owing to various competing needs, investment downgrades, and unfavorable exchange rates. Honorable members, when we appeared before this August House last year, we made the following commitments. Finalize the merger of the National Electronic Media Institute of South Africa, the eSkills Institute, and the Institute of Satellite Software Applications to form the ICAMVA National eSkills Institute in order to coordinate and promote eSkills in South Africa. An amount of 126.4 million was made available over the medium term for this process. Upgrade the cybersecurity website to interactive functionality, which would be available by end of June 2016. Lastly, to grow ICT SMMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a good story to tell. The integration of the 3 entities has been completed. A business case and draft bill were developed, and the minister shared its contents with the members of the Portfolio Committee. During this financial year, we intend to table the INESI bill to Cabinet to complete this process. Through the work done by the National Cybersecurity Advisory Council and Cybersecurity Hub, we have completed an annual report with various recommendations for the consideration of the department. Some of the recommendations focus on the promotion of cybersecurity research, development and innovation, and strengthening public-private partnerships based on complementary roles, common objectives, and shared responsibilities. An initial upgrade to the Cybersecurity Hub's website was concluded in the last financial year, which included the ability for the public to report incidents and the provision of awareness information. The Cybercrimes and Cybersecurity Bill currently before Parliament will place obligations on both private and public sector organizations. Continuing from the previous financial year, our focus this year will continue to be on those programs and activities that adequately skill the youth of South Africa for the 4th Industrial Revolution, strengthen our cyber resilience to withstand attacks and crises, bolster ICT SMMEs for economic inclusivity, transform the Universal Service Fund into the Digital Fund, and strengthening the digital economy. Chairperson, as I reflect on this role of ICTs, I am reminded that in the past few weeks, South Africa was shaken by the spate of gruesome attacks that engulfed our communities, where young women were raped violently and even murdered. These atrocious attacks coincided with my reciprocal visit to China. During this visit, we engaged on some of the interventions that governments utilizing ICTs should embark on to build safer communities. In this financial year, we will therefore roll out the following projects. We're gonna host an ICT expo to educate our communities on effectively utilizing ICTs to protect themselves against violence and abuse. We're going to host roadshows to empower women to protect themselves against abuse. Honorable members, to intensify and accelerate the e-skills program for the youth, NEMISA will coordinate all the activities of the various entities within our portfolio to ensure comprehensive e-skilling. We hope this coordination will include the private sector in the long term. This is crucial to measure the impact and monitor progress for e-skills investment in the country, thus avoiding resource duplication. The entity will further host the National E-Skills Summit this year. An amount of 49 million has been set aside for the e-skills program. The e-skills training interventions will be scaled up across the country. The interventions planned for this year include the following: e-skills for all and cybersecurity awareness, e-skills for teachers, tech for girls, mobile tech for SMMEs, object-oriented programming, and social media, film and TV production. Furthermore, in collaboration with local universities and the industry, postgraduate courses such as Diploma in Software Development, Diploma in Business Analytics and Business Intelligence have been developed. This year, we'll see the first intake of learners in these projects. Honorable Member EFF. In all these programs with the available resources, this year alone, we are targeting 5,040 learners. Honorable members, during the commemoration of the International Girls in ICT Day, we launched the ICT Innovation Challenge. In this financial year, 50 girl learners from the Eastern Cape will be trained on developing ICT innovations, and upon completion, participate in a challenge to build their own innovation, which will benefit their communities. Through .ZNA, female-led SMMEs will also be trained on website development and domain name registrations. That's real economic transformation. During the recent World Economic Forum, Africa 2017 in Durban, the department announced South Africa's adoption of the Internet for All, which aims to bring millions of South Africans, especially those in rural areas, onto the Internet for the first time through new models of public-private partnerships, and will focus on addressing the barriers that prevent universal Internet access. In order to achieve this, the department has forged partnerships with Google, which is going to train 1.1 million South Africans on digital skills. They've just completed 80,000 so far. IBM to train 5 million young people on digital skills. That's over a 5-year period to 1 million a year. Microsoft providing training to 1 million people from Gauteng, as well as building Africa's first digital hub. Cisco will connect 50 schools with smart technology called Sparkboard. Ericsson connect digital labs for schools in Mpumalanga, KZN, and Northern Cape. And lastly, a funding from the UK Department of International Development estimated at £15 million. As we strive to attain the radical economic transformation, SMMEs are the bedrock of any economy in the developing country. Consistent with the 9-point plan, the department has since 2014 been in the process to aggregate SMMEs in the ICT sector. In this regard, we have identified opportunities for the development of SMMEs and support interventions which will be rolling out. Additional to this, we have noted that various SMME initiatives managed by our entities, which is aggregated to 20 million for this financial year. Compatriots, last week's cyber attacks demonstrated the degree to which we are all vulnerable to cyber attacks, especially citizen and government data. Therefore, there is a need to access and grow the limited cybersecurity skills base and awareness in our country. For 2017, we envisage to obtain full international certification of the hub. Progress has been made on upgrades to the cybersecurity hub's policies, processes, infrastructure, and back-end systems, as this is a requirement in order to obtain this full international certification. A national awareness strategy via the hub's website has been approved. To support this initiative, we are going to host a hackathon in October 2017, which is a youth-targeted initiative to develop various cybersecurity-related apps and awareness. Further, we are rolling out a business intelligence or data analytics pilot project whose main objective is to consolidate threats and incident information in order to analyze trends of incidents facing the country. Chairperson, the integrated ICT white paper has proposed for the dissolution of the Universal and Access Fund and transform it into the Digital Fund. In effect, this will remove USASA's policy-making and regulatory functions and instead focus on funding and access delivery to the nation. We sincerely hope that upon its establishment, the Digital Development Fund will further help in the transformation of the sector, as it will also fund SMMEs across the entire value chain of the sector. We will continue to ensure that rural communities in the underserviced local municipalities have access to basic ICT services. Specifically, USASA will ensure access and provision to the following: internet connectivity to public schools, tribal offices, primary health facilities, and for the general community use within the municipalities. Ms. Goso from Zolo Special School is here as a witness to the work that they are doing. Availing broadband within local cafes, libraries, and local businesses to activate local economic activities. Following the commencement of the broadband rollout, USASA plans to complete the entire OR Tambo District Municipality this financial year. The outstanding local municipalities are Nyandeni, Ngoza Hill, and Port St. John's. Also targeted this financial year in KwaZulu-Natal are Imbendle Local Municipality and Umgungundlovu District Municipality. An amount of 29,869,000 has been set aside for this particular purpose. In terms of women development, we will engage with various stakeholders to train women-led startups from the OR Tambo district on how to utilize the free Wi-Fi which has been rolled out in the district to create economic spin-offs and work opportunities. Chairperson, let me highlight that in support of the white paper, we have drafted 3 strategies for public comment before finalization by Cabinet, and these are the E-Strategy of South Africa, the E-Government Strategy, and the ICT SMME Support Strategy. Our work in this regard has been made easy by the councils and forums that we have established: the BEE ICT Sector Council, the National ICT Forum, the National Broadband Advisory Council. Fellow South Africans, I call upon all young people to empower themselves with ICT skills, irrespective of their field of study. Let us all develop a healthy relationship with ICTs and social media in order to empower ourselves and to network developmental opportunities. The 4th industrial revolution requires that each one must be ICT literate. Before I sit down, Chairperson, allow me to quote Moses Godane, who said, and I quote, "Proper education is a mirror in which man sees the world around him and learns to understand it. The right kind of education enables man to see what the world has been, what it is, and how it can be changed to suit him or his way of living."
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. Your time has expired.
Ndiyabulela sihlalo, ndibulela ku Dr. Cwele, Team DOC, Team DTPS, amalungu ahloniphekileyo, okanye xadi nonke.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable E.K. Suela.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister and Deputy Minister of DTPS and other ministers present, honorable members and guests, good afternoon. The National Development Plan envisages that ICT will continue to reduce spatial exclusion, enabling seamless participation by the majority in the global ICT system, not simply as users, but as content developers and application innovators. In so doing, ICT will increasingly form the bedrock of a dynamic and connected, vibrant information society and a knowledge economy that is more inclusive, equitable, and prosperous. The ANC implores the government to speedily finalize the review of the existing ICT policies and regulation towards the new policy that must promote rapid deployment of infrastructure and ensure consolidation of government ICT assets. Parliamentary oversight is one of the three core democratic roles of parliamentarians. The recent oversight visits by the Portfolio Committee on Telecommunications and Postal Services to Mpumalanga and Gauteng was in line with its role and the mandate as per the Constitution and the National Assembly rules. The oversight visit served as the measurement indicator against the service delivery commitment of the committee in terms of the strategic plans and annual financial statements of the department and its entities. The committee's oversight approach entailed visiting various projects implemented by entities such as the South African Post Office and the Universal Service Agency of South Africa to monitor and oversee the implementation of key national priorities which underpins the NDP. The committee investigated the current status in respect of ICT service delivery by its entities, the accessibility, affordability, and universal availability of ICT services, ensure that the government fulfills Section 16 of the Constitution, which amongst others stipulates that everyone has a right to impart and receive information, and this has been interpreted to be defined as the means by which access is made possible. In Mpumalanga, the committee visited broadband projects connected by USANSA. The entity, through the annual performance plan for 2015-16 financial year, resolved to roll out connectivity in Chief Albert Lutuli local municipality of Gersbande district in Mpumalanga. USASA followed a public bidding process when, after the service provider was awarded a subsidy to deploy infrastructure in the local municipality. Indeed, the network infrastructure was rolled out, except that on the day of the visit, there was no connectivity, perhaps an act of sabotage. One of the critical tasks of the department is SOC oversight to ensure effective running of the entities under the department and implementation of mandate as outlined in the annual performance plans. Some of the challenges which are normally encountered during the oversight visit was lack of contract between the service providers and entities. And this posed a serious challenge as the service providers were not held accountable and the quality of service delivered. The issue of stakeholder engagement was also highlighted as one of the most critical issues which need to be prioritized, as the municipality raised some serious concerns that the council was only briefed when the project started, and that the municipality was identified for broadband connectivity. But the interaction with the entity has been minimal, with no formal reports thereafter to indicate progress on the implementation of the project. The committee will thus ensure that all challenges raised during the oversight visits are being followed for corrective measures and resolution. The committee also visited a number of post offices in Mpumalanga and Gauteng, including the Johannesburg International Mail Center. the committee noted a number of issues such as the following. Some of the outlets experienced burglaries and robberies more than once within a very short space of time, and this did not bode well, given the fact that SAPO was trying to position itself as an alternative for the pension payouts. Rental seems quite expensive for the Bosbok-run post office. There is also a need for additional space to accommodate the distribution of the set-top boxes once DTT is rolled out in the area. SAPO management was encouraged with the help of the department to ensure that matters raised during the oversight are resolved speedily and corrective measures are taken where necessary. The purpose of the visit to JIMC was to explore the challenges within the Johannesburg International Maize Center and the extent to which those challenges has been resolved. During the briefing to the committee on January 31st, 2017, SAPO highlighted that the JIMC had been cleaned up as this was key for turning SAPO into a logistic hub. This was so that it can run more efficiently and at the maximum capacity, with many new systems, scanners, and operational practices being used. It was against this background that the committee decided to visit the JIMC as part of the oversight to ensure that the JIMC was fully operational.
Thank you
and
very
able
much,
to provide
Honorable Swela. Your time
the
has expired.
ANC supports the budget.
The next speaker is Honorable Shalembe.
Chairperson, it is a fact that there is indeed growth in our ICT sector, but this growth has not been accompanied by a realization of the primary policy objective of the department: to afford access to the full range of communication services that characterize modern economies for all our people. The cost of domestic broadband remains outside the financial reach of ordinary citizens and is causing a huge obstacle to the development of our ITC sector. With the growth of the ICT sector, however limited it may be, comes a new threat to our country and our people. And cybersecurity is a concern which the NFP believes must be addressed urgently. South Africa has a serious shortage of cybersecurity skills, and this skills shortage is an obstacle in the fight against cyber crime, which is intensifying as more and more people become connected. In this regard, we are encouraged by the department initiative to establish a cybersecurity hub and would like to see the process being accelerated. The report tabled here today contains several pertinent observations and recommendations which we support. In particular, the NFP urges the department to ensure that small business are actively involved during the procurement and implementation of major projects. We also share the concern of the Portfolio Committee on the increased budget for consultant and repeat our policy stance that departments should actively strive to build and retain internal capacity so as to minimize the use of consultant and contribute to much needed skills development. In addition, we concur with Portfolio Committee that South Africa needs to sharpen its innovative edge and continue contributing to global scientific and technological advancement. We agree that this will require a greater investment in research and development, better use of existing resources, and more responsive institutions that will assist both innovative as well as enhanced cooperation between public science and technology institutions and the private sector. Finally, we share the appreciation expressed by the Portfolio Committee in commending the South African Post Office for the progress in its turnaround strategy and the stabilization of its labor force. Much effort will still be required to achieve the goals of the turnaround strategy, but a good start has indeed been made, and we wish the management of the South African Post Office the best of luck. In conclusion, the NFP support the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable Ndongeni.
Sorry. Chairperson, Honorable Minister and Deputy Minister, Honorable Members of Parliament and distinguished guests, Molweni. The National Development Plan 2010 expressed that by 2030, South African rural community must have better opportunity to participate fully in the economic, social, political life of the country. People should be able to access high-quality basic service that enables them to be well-nourished, healthy, and increasingly skilled. ICT can play a significant role in combating rural and urban poverty and fostering sustainable development through creating information-rich society and support livelihoods. The digital divide, which is mainly in the rural community, can be adequately addressed through more competitive and efficient market and effective regulation that enables operation to meet the demand for affordable services, reducing number of households or individuals requiring support. Further strategic to enable access are smart subsidies, which require a once-off intervention. These should be favored over strategies that require permanent subsidies. Where share? Indlela yokukhuthaza abantu malunga nokufumana ulwazi kufuneka izanyiwe. Abantu mabaqeqeshwe, baphuhliswe, babe nolwazi olungcono. Kubalulekile ukuba siqaphele ukuba uqeqesho lwendlela yokusetyenziswa konxibelelwano nobugcisa luyafumaneka ngokuthi kusetyenziswe amajelo kunye nemibutho yokuhlala ukupapasha ulwazi. Olu lwazi lukuncedisa ukuba sibone apho kusilela khona nalapho uncedo lufumaneka khona lokuza kuthi luncede abantu malunga nezinkcukacha zokuhlala. Sincediswe yimibutho, izikolo kwakunye namajelo osasazo. Kwingxaki esijongene nazo malunga nophuhliso lwamaphandle kukunika okanye ukuphazamiseka kwingxaki esijongene nazo malunga nophuhliso lwamaphandle kukumka okanye uphazamiseko lombane. Ngexesha besike sandendolo kwiphondo lwaseMpumalanga siyile komiti sivile malunga nengxaki abajongene nazo abahlale ezinjengezixhobo zesola enika ubushushu nalapho zithe zamoshwa ezinye zabiwa. Loo nto ibangela inkxalabo kukhuseleko lweenkonzo eziziswa eluntwini ngurhulumente. Enye ingxaki esiyiqapheleyo siyile komiti kukunganikezelwa kakuhle kweenkonzo eziya ebantwini kubangelwa kukunqongophala kweenkampani ezinkulu eziza kuthi zithathele kuzo okanye zongamele ezinye kulo msebenzi wale network xa kuthe kwaphela iminyaka emibini eqingqiweyo yokuncediswa nguYUSASA. Siyile komiti sikhuthaza eli sebe lonxibelelwano ukuba lungenelele ukwenzela ukuba iinkonzo zabantu zibe nokuhlala ithuba elide. Chairperson, monitoring and evaluation of the impact of the implemented solution also remain a major challenge, and the issue of competent resource to ensure proper monitoring cannot be overemphasized. It is important to note that all these outlined challenges can be overcome in appropriate intervention are implemented. Kukhona ke imigaqo nemigomo eyenziwa ngurhulumente ukuncedisa nokwenziwa kolu luqhagamshelwano broadband emaphandleni. Eminye yalo mgaqo yile nto siyibiza nge-South African Connect and National Integrated ICT White Paper. Le migaqo inceda kumanyathelo amawathathu ukunceda imfuno ezingundoqo eziyimpumelelo ekuhlaleni. The committee has been informed that the department has established partnership between public and private sector, which includes services providers and development funding institutions, to drive ongoing collaboration among organizations. The role of the private sector will be very critical going forward. Experience elsewhere demonstrate that private sector participate in competition coupled with effective regulation have been potential to deliver lower prices and improved quality and speed of services. South Africa needs to commit to intensify competition in the ICT sector. In conclusion, it is equally important to mention that improving equality access to ICT services will require action to stimulate demand. At the most fundamental level, illiteracy needs to be improved through training in schools, at tertiary education facilities, and adult education colleges.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Your time has expired.
Okay, the ANC support the budget.
Order. Well, the next speaker was supposed to be Honorable Carter. I don't see her here. We'll move then to Honorable Koronov.
Thank you, Chairperson. 2 weeks ago, we have lost 9 rhinos in 48 hours in KwaZulu-Natal, and a whopping 89 in the first 18 weeks of 2015. In the Greater Kruger Park, poaching has dropped by 20%. Telecommunications do play an important part in the fight against poaching. In a world of rhino conservation and wildlife security, there are many fantastic communication and technological tools available. Unfortunately, they rely on GSM networks. And as we know, the rollout of reliable and good quality GSM networks in the rural areas remains a challenge. The poaching hotspots in South Africa is in rural KwaZulu-Natal, in rural Mpumalanga, and in Limpopo province. So if there is not a reliable network, these tools for anti-poaching units does not function optimal. For instance, anti-poaching units make use of camera traps in poacher incursion sites. Unfortunately, their picture sites, the so-called MMS, come through drips and drabs, sometimes days later. The commanders and rangers of these units took it up with the service providers, the MTNs of the world, the Vodacoms, the Cell Cs, the Telcoms, but they were informed, Honourable Minister, that by their technicians, that the data is prioritized to cope first with voice calls, then with SMS, and images, the pictures last. So they released the pictures, including the vital information from camera traps in off-peak times and when there is availability on the network. So this important tool is simply not working. And I want to suggest that your department go to the service providers, ask them to prioritize images transfers in this area directly around our national parks. That will be a major breakthrough. Secondly, telecommunication masts are very unsightly in the national park areas. It's visible pollution. But they are vital for good communications, even for wildlife management. We need to track our ranges. We must track sometimes rhinos and vehicles, and we need a network. There are many masts on the landscapes around our national parks because every service provider wants their own mast. And I want to suggest that existing masts must be shared in the protected areas and in the national parks, and that we do not ask every service provider to erect their own. 2 simple suggestions, Honourable Minister, but this can make a difference to better and vital communications in our wildlife areas. Already in 2009, the World Bank found that low to middle income economies can grow by 1.3% for every 10% of the population who have access to broadband internet. It's a no-brainer that this department can and must kickstart economic growth in South Africa. And with your best efforts, I think it will happen. If you look to broadband internet in the rural areas at homes, I think we've penetrated 7%. If you go to work, it goes to 9% or 8%. If you go to broadband internet and the workplace and educational facilities, it goes to 9%. But if you go to mobile devices in the rural areas, it goes to 20%.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member, your time has expired.
If you want to get over the digital divide, you must use
Thank you very much.
rural areas.
The next speaker is Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Telecommunications has moved far beyond making a phone call or sending an SMS. Budget speeches this year have been littered with talk of the fourth industrial revolution and e-government, a good indicator of how far technology has taken us since the birth of the internet and the rollout of fast, ubiquitous broadband. The fourth industrial revolution, digitization, automation, and the Internet of Things is already with us, changing the way the world lives, works, and plays. E-government and its ability to connect citizens with government, business with government, and government with government is a game changer in how government interacts and communicates more efficiently, more effectively, and at a lower cost. There's broad agreement across all political parties that inequality is one of the biggest challenges facing South Africa today. A growing economy creates jobs and opportunities, and a job is a pathway out of poverty. But job creation depends entirely on economic growth. And as the Honourable Konov said, few economic sectors have the power to directly contribute as much and as quickly to economic growth than ICT and broadband specifically. The World Bank research shows that every 10% increase in broadband penetration could contribute an extra 1.38%. That 8.8 is very important to the economic growth rate for low and middle income countries. And at 1.38%, that's double the pedestrian 0.6% economic growth projected for South Africa this year. Saving paper. Given this fact, we would expect this government and the department to lead the way in the rollout of broadband and the implementation of e-government in South Africa. So how's the department doing? Well, let's use the department's own goals, and that's an intended pun, to measure this. Expand and modernize ICT infrastructure by implementing South Africa Connect broadband policy. Well, Minister, that's a fail so far. Coordinate the migration to digital broadcasting. Well, Deputy Minister, that's a fail so far, missed deadlines included. Implement the legislative framework stemming from the 2016 National Integrated ICT Policy White Paper. We've just heard we're going to be waiting until next year for this. And rationalize state-owned companies. Well, that's a fail. 3 years later, and there's lots of talk but little action. The department is seized with discussing the ICT White Paper, e-government, digital strategies, and the mythical SA Connect. The problem is not for want of policy statements or intentions, though. We are awash with these. The problem is lots of talking and little implementation. As mentioned by the Deputy Minister, 2 of the department's annual performance plan priorities for 2017-2018 are the finalization and approval of the National E-Strategy and E-Government Strategy. But they've been paying lip service to the concept of e-government for decades. And it's not me who says this, it's government itself. In the proposed National E-Government Strategy, published in the Government Gazette of the 7th of April, on page 495, it says, and I quote, "Existing e-government policy and strategies have played lip service over time, which led to outdated approaches, as well as the fact that South Africa has not moved forward in achieving the strategic objectives as set out in the 2001 e-government policy. 16 years later, and the government is still talking more, but doing less. In this regard, time is the enemy, and South Africa is losing the battle." A recent parliamentary oversight to Mpumalanga provides a clue as to why South Africa is losing this fight. According to information supplied by USASA as part of SA Connect, several clinics, schools, and government offices have been connected to the broadband network designed and built by Meng, a BEE startup. When we visited the sites, with the exception of a single clinic, no connectivity existed, and the network infrastructure was vandalized and not maintained. Yet the government had paid around 30 million rand for connectivity that doesn't exist. And I say 30 million rand because when I asked how much it was, they said it was 20-something million. 20-something million. It's important to contrast this with another connectivity program in this country that's rolling out government services and internet access to our citizens. And it's right here in the DA-governed Western Cape, as recognized by Minister Cwele. The Western Cape Broadband Strategy and Implementation Plan aims to coordinate and integrate government action to radically improve the provision of telecommunication infrastructure, skills, and usage within the province. It intends to ensure that every citizen in every town and village has access to affordable, high-speed broadband infrastructure and services, has the necessary skills to be able to effectively utilize this infrastructure, and is actively using this in their daily lives. And this isn't lip service. This province has brought together the public sector in the form of CETA, Neotel from the private sector, and the Western Cape government itself in a 10-year, 3.6 billion rand self-funded program that is contributing to the provision of affordable, ubiquitous broadband to meet the diverse needs of public and private users. And it's working. The Western Cape is ready for the fourth industrial revolution. It is rolling out broadband and e-government. It is paying more than lip service to these concepts. But where's national government and where are the other provinces? 3 years down the line since the illogical, irrational, and unnecessary split of communications and telecommunications, and who can fathom the inner workings of the president's mind? Although a letter writer to Business Day suggested that the president is still running on MS-DOS while everyone else is running Windows 10. 3 years later, and this department and its programs are still racked by underperformance, lack of delivery, policy confusion, and worse still, policy implementation. This government is not just running out of other people's money, it's running out of time. The fourth industrial revolution, e-government, and the broadband network that underpins it has the power to effect positive change on a scale sorely needed by this country. But for this to happen, fast, reliable, and universal broadband and access to it must be in place, because unless you've built the foundation, you cannot deliver the future, because it won't wait for South Africa to catch up. It needs to be done, and done now, because the time for lip service is past. Let me leave you with a piece of advice, Minister, from Walt Disney, and I quote, "The way to get started is to quit talking and start doing, because come 2019, rest assured, the deal."
Thank you very much. Your time has expired, Honorable Mackenzie. The next speaker is Honorable Killian.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, Minister, Deputy Minister, other cabinet ministers present here, guests in the gallery, colleagues, everybody watching the debate. The dawn of the digital era presents both huge opportunities and phenomenal risks. It depends on how governments, political parties, and individuals approach and manage it. And if Honorable Mackenzie is so very confident about what the DA is getting right, certainly they're not getting their social media policy right. If I can recall what is currently being done as far as disciplinary hearings are concerned, but there's also not, the liberal philosophy that everybody is equal certainly does not apply to DA members. So, Chairperson, the latest buzzword is fake news. But actually, we should ask, is this a new concept? It is just a new word, as far as I'm concerned, for propaganda or political spin. Now, Honorable Shin from the DA, a regular columnist for Tech Central, in March this year wrote that government was, and I quote, dragging its feet on the ICT policy implementation. In a more recent article, she wrote, and I quote, the process of developing legislation arising from the white paper is, here it comes, proceeding with reckless haste. Now, which of the two is it? On the one hand, she accuses government of dragging its feet, and the next moment she accuses government of moving with reckless haste. She, in fact, indicated in that one Tech Central article that she would approach, I don't know if she has done it, Deputy President Ramaphosa, with a request to delay the draft legislation emanating from the ICT white paper. Now, today we heard both her and the Honourable Mackenzie telling us what exactly is wrong, as if they have everything right under their control. Chairperson, to start with, it would have been advisable if the DA in the Western Province would have used technology to predict that the rainfall patterns in the Western Cape have been under pressure for the past 10 years. Why, if they were so clever, do we have? It's not the drought. That is an excuse. That is an excuse. You knew, Professor Mike Miller from Wits University said this morning, you were aware of it since 27, but you decided to ignore the realities. So please, don't come and tell us what to do. First, clear up your own house. The fact is, Honorable Shin and the DA do not want, and Honorable Kenzie, do not want government to succeed. As self-appointed spokesperson for the ICT sector, Honorable Shin would welcome any legal action that would prevent ICT policy implementation. Because, you see, this is the problem. The DA believes what is bad for South Africa is good for the DA. And you know, Honorable Chairperson, the worst is, they actually believe they have the capacity to govern South Africa. They actually believe it. In the meantime, they battling
Order, honorable
with
members,
the
just cool
Nelson.
down a little bit.
They battling. They need conflict resolution in the Nelson Mandela municipality between the mayor and the deputy mayor. Now, if they want to govern South Africa through coalition government, what hope do they have to get it right if they cannot manage a simple municipality? Maybe we should not say that. Winston Churchill once said, the pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're seeing absolutely. And you see, coming from the DA, one should have thought that they would have read Churchill by now. Chairperson, ANC supports vote 32. We are happy that the internal disputes and infighting in the department over several years have come to an end. It's been arrested. And that the DTPS can now focus on their critical mandate, which essentially is to help bring about an inclusive, knowledge-based economy. The government on its own cannot do it. That's why we say to help bring about. It must harness industry to work with it. The minister has in fact referred to the World Economic Forum's ranking of South Africa, where we have improved. But we are modest enough to realize that all is still not well. We have improved mostly because the business sector has moved forward. We need to do more as a government. And we're honest and modest enough to acknowledge that, unlike the DA. We also acknowledge that our ranking on the ITU's ICT Development Index has unfortunately deteriorated. Only 2 places, from 86 the previous year to 88 the most recent year, out of 167 countries. Not bad for a developing country at all. The poor ranking can be ascribed to inadequate IT skills levels and to the high cost of our equipment, our ICT equipment. Now, Chair, I would like to quickly focus on some of the entities because there has been progress made. Yes, there are difficulties, but there was progress made by entities. Altogether, 8 state-owned enterprises report to the DTPS and specifically to the dedicated branch for that purpose. Government is the majority stakeholder in all except in .zatna. The rationalization of these entities and a critical review of their mandate, respective mandates, have become very necessary. And that is why the ICT policy white paper is so important, that we can restructure and give them specific mandates to fulfill as part of a whole new engine. Let me highlight some achievements and challenges facing the entities. SAPU has done excellently under the new management CEO bonds, and they should be commended for making significant progress on the turnaround strategy. During the past financial year, they managed to settle outstanding debt and to stabilize its operations through good engagement with labor unions. But the entity needs to develop additional revenue streams to supplement its declining mail business. Government departments should be encouraged to conduct their businesses through SAPU. Why do we support private businesses if we have our own South African Post Office that can do the job? Secondly, we have had some challenges with regard to Postbank corporatization. Minister spoke about it. But there's been progress, and we will shortly see that also the final lodgement of the license application will proceed. The mail revenue decline is necessary to be addressed. Post offices all over the world had to adjust their business strategies in line with the changing market conditions and realities. It's nothing new, it's nothing exceptional. There has been a decline in mail internationally. But we cannot deny the footprint of SAPU in the most remotest areas, but unfortunately it comes at a price. This universal service obligations, points of presence throughout the country, is making it very difficult for SAPU to continue cross-subsidizing its operations through its commercial branch. Because remember, commercial needs to compete with the private sector, but they do not carry the same universal service obligations. So that must be addressed. E-commerce presents huge opportunities which should be optimized. SAPU will develop new logistical and parcel and logistics strategy, and we hope to have it implemented sooner than you believe, Honorable Mackenzie. Discussions between SAPU and SASSA are also taking place to determine how the entity, once the Postbank has been established, can play a successful role with payout of social grants. Centec, it generates adequate revenue to meet its liabilities. It performs impressively against its targets and has achieved a clean audit for 4 consecutive years. However, the entity faces specific risks. DTT, notwithstanding government's dual elimination fund, the continued delays in DTT migration has a negative impact on Centec's finances. Secondly, the SABC's financial woes, the contribution to signal distribution fees is not happening, and clearly now Centec must carry that additional debt as well. This is placing severe strain on Centec's revenue stream, and it must be addressed very shortly. We hope that the new Minister of Communication will get the SABC to honor their commitments. Non-payment of signal distribution costs by community broadcasters is another challenge. At this stage, they owe Centec as accumulated amount more than 16 million, and there is a growing uncertainty regarding how that amount will be recovered. Broadband Infraco, Chairperson, this entity has really managed to operate within its means. It was under severe financial strain, but it improved its management and budgeting processes. They have unfortunately lost key staff because of uncertainty about its continued existence, but the mere fact that they will now be migrated and become part of new structures will certainly contribute to stability also in the labor component of BBI. Then under CEO Dr. Mohapi, CETA has been a real success story. Despite achieving 73.1% of its set targets at year-end, the entity, however, has difficulty to overcome its poor delivery reputation. The the challenges raised by the departments range from those that are common across departments, procurement, network, skills, etc., to those that are specific to departments. And we all know the story about the certificate issuing and the Department of Higher Education and Training and their challenges faced. Fact of the matter is, the total debt due to CETA as at end March, 31 March 2017, amounts to 1.188 billion. That is departmental debt to CETA. Now, clearly, I was wondering if the Western Cape, we should in fact follow up on that, Minister, please, let us follow up on that. The fact is, government departments cannot expect excellent service without paying for it. They're quite willing to pay for consultants and for external companies, but why do they often default on government agencies? That is unacceptable. Under CEO Mtende, USASA has improved, it has stabilized its governance and operations. Although, and some of the members of the Portfolio Committee referred to our oversight visit, which really indicated where the shortcomings were in this entity. First of all, it is very evident that there is lack of coordination. Honourable Minister, there is a problem that sites are connected, but that the connectivity lasts for 24 months and thereafter it falls off because those institutions, including some of the Western Cape, possibly departments, don't pay and don't take over the connectivity costs after infrastructure was rolled out to schools, to clinics, etc. That's a huge challenge. That must be addressed. And certainly, USASA has tightened the belt. They've improved their management of the fund, but now moving into the new Digital Development Fund, which will have to, unfortunately, go through some growing pains. But we've learned excellent lessons, Honourable Minister, and we shouldn't
Thank you very
allow
much,
it to happen again.
Honourable Killian. Your time
we
has
would
expired.
like to support and to say we have an historic opportunity to eradicate backlogs. Let's not create new ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Minister will now close the debate. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I would like firstly to thank all the members for positive contributions. Let me say SAPO is really stabilizing. We have changed the board. We have changed the management. Now we've got a new board since last year and a new management. Just today, the Cabinet approved the appointment of a new COO to drive the operations. So last year we appointed the CEO, Mark Barnes, the CFO. Today we have got a black female who's a new COO of this company. On the PES Bank, all what I can say, we're on track, but honourable members, we're working together with the Minister of Finance and National Treasury. All what they need or we're trying to bring to Parliament is a 3-word amendment in the Banks Act to say a public company, just say also includes a state-owned company. Finish. That's all what we need, and we hope that we'll cooperate on that. Let me thank all the members for supporting this Internet for All project. It is very important because all the easy to connect are already connected all over the world. Those who are remaining are the difficult to connect. They are in the underserved area. As I've said earlier, we have got all these partners. Some of them are own national partners, but some of them have flown from abroad just to come and participate in this program and discussions. So we really thank them for that and their support as we go to all these difficult areas. I also invite the EFF because they were complaining about the connectivity in the township. But what I know under the ANC government, we're rolling out free Wi-Fi in all our townships, particularly in the major centers. Guess what happens when they came into this unholy marriage with the DA? They tried to reverse it, but they felt the wrath of the people because our youth couldn't allow them to. Let me state again, the SAPO and this Post Bank, they are ready to assist SASSA to completely take over the payment of social grants, and will continue to support them. Just on a few issues, the USASA Mpumalanga issue, I'll take it, honorable members, we'll come back to you on it, because I don't want to give snaps. But the real challenge is that, as some of the members have said, because they didn't have enough revenue through this USA fund, it's only such a small percent. Most of the countries of our comparative nation or developing country, they are charging already 1%. We are still charging 0.2%. So that's another problem. And departments and entities can't take over. They can't take over. No, we'll investigate that. The one, Honorable Shin, is not for cronies. Actually, it's an insult what you're saying, because there are South African companies, capable companies, who are operating in other countries. They don't have a license to operate in their own countries. Without one, we won't get this inclusiveness. We won't get more people playing in this field. So there's nothing about cronism in this. Yes, not now, not in the future. On the set-top box tender, of course, we're working much closer with Minister Lodlo to look into this. If there's any irregularity, we'll deal with those irregularities and cancel the tender if there are irregularities. But we're working together with the USASA to deal with this. Lastly, members, tonight, I'll be happy if you can join us here in Cape Town. I just have to get the venue. We'll be launching this Africa project. Yes, it's a very important thing. It was won by a South African company run by blacks on the main to run the domain names for Africa continent as a whole. I know my organization, the African National Congress, will probably have a domain name, ANC.Africa. I hope the DA will follow the same and others. This issue of domain names is very, very important. I also need .twele, and so that I can track my family. No, I don't have the money. So
no, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Time is expired.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Members are reminded that the debate on labor budget vote will take place at 16:15 in the National Assembly chamber. The debate on public service and administration budget vote will take place at 16:15 in the old Assembly chamber. And the debate on women budget vote will take place at 16:15 in the committee room E249, where we are. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise.